So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Monday Momentum. This one I think is it's personal for everyone. I think I say that every week, but this time I actually really mean it. And today, we're kind of talking a little bit about why most small brands fail at branding and how to fix it, right? This one, a lot of small brands, you think you have a branding problem, but you don't have a branding problem. I've learned very quickly that you have a clarity problem and you're trying to look like a brand before you've decided like what your brand actually stands for. And I know this is it's an exciting phase because you are building something and you want to stand for something, right? And you want it to look a certain way, but what does it actually mean? And sometimes because we don't know what we stand for, it feels a little off. And that's why sometimes that you small brands fail at branding. So let me tell you what I see constantly, right? Someone starts a business, and this is the exciting part, right? They go to Canva and they pick their colors. So they pick the brand colors, they pick the font, they get a logo made, right? They start to build a website, and all this stuff is good and it's exciting, but then you wonder why nobody's paying attention. And I have come to learn, right? The reason why not a lot of people are paying attention is because pretty is not a brand. So you pick the perfect colors, the perfect logo, the perfect font, and all these things get me excited, but like that's not a brand, right? A color palette is not a brand. A logo is not a brand. They're just like decorations. They make, if you have maybe like a something that you're sending out, right? Like a design, right? You could put it on the side, but that's again is just decoration, right? A brand is a promise. It's the answer to one question. And that question is when someone meets you, when someone encounters you, right? What do they immediately understand about what you do, about who you serve, about who you are, and why should they trust you, right? I talk about this with my team a lot, right? Like when we talk about our investors, our clients, right? The underlying theme is we want to make them feel like we are a place that they can trust, right? That they can come to us with any of their needs from a real estate perspective, and that we will be able to solve that for them, right? That's what we want to be known for. And so you have to ask yourself that question again, right? As soon as someone encounters you, do they know what you're doing? Do they know who you serve? Do they understand what you do? Do they feel like you're the one that they can trust? That's important. And if you cannot answer that, right, then no amount of design is going to save you. No amount of pretty cursive in your logo is going to be the answer for you, right? And so right now, if you're here, drop in the chat and if you have a brand or you're thinking about building one, right? Can you say what that brand stands for or what it would stand for? So I'm curious, right? If you just from like thinking or dreaming, right? If you've created one in the past or you're thinking about that, right? Can you say what it stands for? Can you think about what you would want it to stand for, right? You could, and if you don't have it, maybe you could say you're working on it or something of that sort. But it's always good to know. And if you're listening, right? If you're joining us if you're joining us via streaming, then maybe you can just answer it. Or and if you're watching this afterwards, maybe you can also just think it or write it down, right? Can you say who you are, what you do, who you serve in one sentence, and why people should trust you? That's a start of thinking about why branding is so important. And this is where small brands go wrong. And I've made every single one of these mistakes. So I'm not preaching. I feel like I'm confessing, but I want you to learn from what I've done because I think it's so important, right? And the first mistake that I've made, and I see a lot of small brands making, is that you're talking to everyone, right? You are too afraid to niche it down. And when a brand tries to speak to everyone, right, you do not resonate with any single person. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard to be like, okay, I want to talk to this one person. Like, I want to name her. Her name is this. This is what she likes to do. This is who she is. These are her struggles, right? Like, it's hard because you're like, well, I want to just cast a wide net so that everyone maybe I can catch like one or two if I cast a wide net. But what you end up doing is you water down your message, right? You use very safe, like generic language, and you end up sounding like every other person in your space. And what you want to do is be different, right? Because you're not talking to everyone. You're talking to a specific person, right? And the brands that win really are the ones that are very specific. They're painfully specific. And it's very important for you to kind of understand and know that, right? And so, like for us, at Phoenix Capital, I can say this, right? I help physicians and healthcare professionals build wealth and build passive income through real estate, right? That's who we are. That's what we stand for. And that hits differently than like, I just help everyone build wealth, right? And you can tell that the people who are like, oh, yes, I want to be part of what she's doing, right? It's the same, it's the same person, right? But it's widely different brand power. So you have to be thinking about yours. If you're thinking about building something, make it to like specificity. You have to realize that specificity is not limiting. It's actually magnetic. It's hard to understand this and it's hard to grasp it, but when you do, it makes such a big difference. And so that's the first mistake that I see people and small brands making. And the second one is you lead with what you do, right? Instead of why it matters. This one's hard because you want to tell people what you do, right? Because that's the most important thing. You're like, okay, I want customers, clients, mentees, whatever it is, right? Investors, like, so you're like, I have to tell them what I do. But instead, try to lead with why it matters, right? Because nobody cares about your service. You think they do, right? Because you're like, because you think they want what I have to offer. It's of value, right? But really, right, they care about their problem and they care about their own desire. They care about the gap between where they are, so like right here, and where they want to be, which is right here. So that gap in between, that's what they care about, right? And you have to speak to that. So your brand, the job of your brand is to step into that gap and solve that problem. So you have to tell them why you are the person that's going to take care of that thing. You don't need to list all your features, right? You don't need to talk about the process of what you do. Like we take you through investing process and we do this. No, right? We just want to be able to fill that gap between where they are right now and where they want to be. And to be able to say or tell them, like, I see where you are, I know where you want to be, right? And I'm the bridge, like, I'm that person, or I have that service, I have that offer that's going to help you. That is how you should be thinking about branding. And then the third mistake that I've seen small brands make and I have made, and that's why this kind of resonates a lot with me, is that I initially in the beginning, right, I was very inconsistent, and that could be your problem too. You're inconsistent and it's killing your trust, right? So let's just say you show up on LinkedIn for 2 weeks and you power through. You're like maybe 5 days a week, you're like, I'm doing this, right? And then you disappear for a month. Or like your website says one thing and your Instagram says another, and then you pitch something different somewhere else along the way. That inconsistency, like nobody knows exactly who you are, what you do, why you matter, right? That is truly killing your trust. So every time your message shifts, right? And in the beginning, right, you could say, okay, well, I'm not sure, right? I'm still refining, I'm still building, that's okay. But when you come out to the world and you have something to offer and you're a little bit more stable, right? Every time that message shifts, your audience has to kind of relearn who you are, what you do, right? And most of them won't bother, right? They'll just be like, oh, I'm not really sure she is the right person to solve my problem. So maybe I should go find someone else. And I'll say this, right? Consistency is not boring. I tell my team all the time, like, our work and our growth is in the mundane, it's in the consistency, it's in the reps. But I'll say this, right? Consistency is how trust compounds. So over time, right? The more you start, like, you want your people to know that when I come to her, when I come to him, I'm going to get this, right? And that's consistency. And that might seem boring, but it's not, right? Because you say who you are, you show them who you are, and then you prove to them who you are, right? And that brand will win long term over the ones who say, like, they say the same thing in so many different ways, right? But nobody's really knowing what they're saying. But the brand who says, this is who I am over time, right? That like every team member understands your messaging, your mission, your vision, right? It becomes automatic, right? So, and people, what you want to, when you know you've won, is that when people call your name, right? They already know who you are. They associate you with that thing, right? You're the money person, or you're the coach who like transforms lives or whatever it is, right? Like you want them to call your name and that immediately gets associated with that thing. That is the goal of who you want your brand to be, what you want your brand to be. And so if you're listening and you're like, okay, maybe I've made one, two, or three of these mistakes, which of them hit the hardest? If you want to drop it in the chat, or like just like think about it, right? And which one are you like, oh man, I've seen myself do this. I want to fix this. I want to get better at that. Just drop it in the chat. But I know I have made all of these mistakes, but I've learned from it, right? Again, right? I keep going back to consistency. I don't think it's boring, but if you had to think about it, it's in the boring mundane that people then get to know who you are. And that knowledge is what builds trust. And so if you have struggled with this, right, this is how you could fix it, right? And I think it's a lot simpler than we think. One is, and this is the one that you have to really think about, is a clear who, right? So again, it's not everyone. It's not generalized like people. It's not generalized professionals. It's a specific person. Right? Can you name her? Can you name that person? Give it a name, right? Know their fears, know their goals, know what they want, know what keeps them up at night, know their know their pain struggle. And everything that you create around that. So then you are directly talking to that person, right? You don't even have to know that person's name. You can call him or her something. But like when they listen, right, they're like, yes, that is my person. Like I want what she has because she knows exactly who I am, right? That's what you want to stand for. And secondly, right, from that second kind of struggle, I'd say a clear promise. So what transformation do you deliver? And it's different from like what service you offer, right? What changes in someone's life because they link arms with you, because they partner with you, because they said yes to you, right? That is the promise that you want to be specific. You want to be very, 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 very specific about, because that promise is going to become the backbone of like everything that you do. So every piece of content, every pitch, every conversation, right? And it's not just you anymore, right? It's going to trickle down to your whole team. So it's how they relate to investors. It's how they relate to your clients. It's how they relate to the tenants, right? That nobody will ever know there's a difference between one person to the other because they all speak the same language. That is what a clear promise will do. And the third is a clear voice, right? So, and it's not just like your literal voice, but how do you sound, right? When people want to interact with you, are you warm? Are you approachable as an expert, right? Are you maybe you just might be like blunt, right? That's who you are. And then there are people who resonate with that, right? Are you more of the calm, steady guide? What is your voice, right? Figure it out, pick a lane, stick to it, right? You can be like the bold truth teller, right? You can be that contrarian, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you can be that person. But you can be warm and you can also be approachable, right? That could be the type of expert you are. That's the type of thought leader that you are. And you could just be steady. It doesn't matter which one, but just pick one and stick to it, because your voice is what people feel. They feel something when they encounter your brand, and that's what it's in your voice. And that feeling sometimes is what will drive action, right? You're not, remember, the goal is not to resonate with the whole world, because that's just not possible. If you're liked by everyone, you're probably just a little too vanilla. And I would say, so think about it, right? You don't want to, again, there's nothing wrong with niching it down. There's nothing wrong with speaking to a particular set of people who want what you have, who are able to appreciate the value that you give, right? All of that is in branding. And if you start with picking one of these three things, right? So whether it's a clear who, a clear voice, a clear promise, right? You want all three of them. Like that's the perfect brand. You want all three of them, but start with one and build from there. And once those three things are locked in, right? Then the logo and the colors and the website, like they become easy. Like that's the fun part. That's the part that we do first. But I think all the other things are more important than that, right? But then all those things become how you express something real, instead of like decorating something that doesn't have like any substance to it, right? That's when you start deciding, okay, this color means boldness and this is who I am. And that's the voice that that's the voice that I bring out. So that's how you have to start thinking about branding and maybe why sometimes you're not succeeding. And as we wrap up, here's what I want you to do this week, right? Just one thing. And again, our goal is every time we come here, we do one small micro shift into living bigger, fuller lives. So sit down and maybe write your brand's promise in one sentence, right? What is it that, that one sentence is you're going to say who you help and what changes for them if they come alongside this journey with you, and why you're the one person to do it, right? So it's not a paragraph, it's not difficult, it's just who you help, what changes happens to them, and why you're the person to do it for them. And so I don't necessarily think it needs to be a paragraph. It doesn't need to be a tagline, right? It's just really just that one sentence. And you will not get it right the first time, but it's not about perfection. Again, right? You might not be speaking to me, so me caring doesn't matter, right? But the person who you're speaking to, that thing will resonate with them. And then you can continue to iterate it and make it better, and that's okay. So if you already have one, right, pressure test it. Maybe talk about it in the community or send it to someone who doesn't know anything about your business, and then ask them, like, does this make sense to you? Like, this is who I am. This is who I serve, right? This is the change that I hope to happen for them. And this is the reason why I'm the person to do it, right? Send that to somebody and say, does this make sense? And if they hesitate, then it's not clear enough. It doesn't mean it's bad, right? It's just like you just have to keep refining it and making it better. And so that's just what I want you to take away from here, right? And if you have it, drop it in the chat. And if you need some time to kind of think through it as the week goes by, drop it in the community. But that's it, right? As you're thinking about building a brand, you already have one brand that you really want to fine tune and make it better, right? Go and fix it just based on what we've talked about today. A clear who, a clear voice, and a clear promise. Don't focus on the logo. I know that's the one thing that we think people are looking at, but people, except you're like the Big 10, right? The logo is important, but what's more important is that you have a clear promise and that you're speaking to someone and they resonate with what you're saying and they're picking you, right? All they want is your clarity. And that's where the power is. It's in being crystal clear about those things. So that's all I got today. I want everyone to have an incredible Monday. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat. I see in the chat, knowing your audience's pain point is key to building trust with your target audience. I agree 100%. Is really knowing your target audience, right? Knowing the person, and that goes with naming that person, their pain point, why they need to pick you, why they need to stick with you, right? That's important. And then I have a question. How did you build credibility with your audience when you just started your business and had little to no proof of concept? Great question. I would say that it is in the showing up and it's in the consistency. And you say you stand with you're firm on your promise and you stick to it and you show up. And I think that everybody starts from nowhere, right? Not everyone woke up and had 1 million followers, right? There were times when nobody saw them. I always think about that overnight success, right? It's not a thing, right? It's just one day you noticed them, but you didn't see the months and the years of grinding that they did to get to where they are. But the people who started with them are like, man, I remember when she had 10 followers. I remember when she had one customer. I remember when I was her first customer, right? Or her first investor, whatever that is, right? I remember that. And you hear stories, right? But those people were just consistent. They hit the ground running and they just kept going. And it's not it was never a sprint, it was a marathon. So when I started, right, my goal was I would remain consistent. I put the reps in wherever I wanted to grow, how I wanted to grow, right? If I said I was going to show up, and do a webinar and 2 people showed up, like I was going to do it, right? If I said that we were, an email was going to go out on this date, it was going to go out on this date. If I said I was going to show up online at this time, I did that, and that matters to someone, right? And it shows that you are who you say you are. It builds trust. And trust is built when, not when you have like shiny, big product and you've made a name for yourself. It's built when really no one's watching and you just keep doing the thing that you said you were always going to do. So I would say that's how you do it, right? Not a lot of people have proof of concept or they don't yet, right? But you have to do the work, put the reps, keep going, and then you'll get there. A great question. Thank you. Okay, well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this Monday. I want to say have a wonderful rest of your Monday and a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.